Good afternoon, everyone. We are so excited to be with you today, and we're going to talk to you about the MSIS Intervention Screen. We start every PowerPoint presentation with the vision and mission of the board and the 6 strategic goals. Just keep those at the forefront of our mind whenever we are making decisions at the department and working with you. It just really guides our work, and we just like to keep all of that at the forefront. And here are 6 strategic goals. I'm not going to read all of those to you, but they are there for your reference. Okay, so today I'm Laurie Weathersby. I am the Bureau Director of the Office of Intervention Services, and we have Ginger Kessler with us today. She is our behavior specialist, and she helps with our MSIS screen. So when we get questions about the MSIS screen and how it relates to intervention services, she helps us with all of that. And so today, we are just bringing you some updated information that we wanted to share, and we thought this is the best way to do it. Do a recording and then provide these slides for you, and then you would have them. So we're going to talk to you about our state intervention policy. We are going to talk about the purpose of the MSIS screen, why we have it. We're going to talk to you about the criteria for students that automatically populate, and then how Tier 3 students are inputted into MSIS. And then finally, just some general guidance and making sure that we have addressed all of your concerns. So first is our state board policy. It is 41.1. It is our intervention policy, and it covers several different areas for us at the department, especially around interventions, the tier process, dyslexia, and another component of that is MSIS. And our policy was updated in 2018, and one of the updates was around our students that populate from kindergarten. So now if you are a kindergarten repeater, you will populate on the MSIS list, and that was really the only change around MSIS in 2018. You can download the PDF version from our website, and Ginger has it highlighted here where you can find that. You go to our intervention page and you will see it highlighted in blue, and you can click directly on that link to get the policy. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ginger.
All right, guys. So many of you guys are probably asking, and the question that we get a lot is, why do we have the MSIS screen? What are the MSIS intervention screen? Like, what's the point? So what it does is it helps us ensure that accurate reporting of student intervention data. So making sure that we're getting the correct work or seeing the correct work that you guys are doing. It helps us capture that necessary data that we need in order to comply with that state policy that Laurie was just talking about. And it does help us monitor timelines and services and things like that as far as compliance goes. You know, if you ever do have an audit, that is one of the areas that we would come in and look at is, have you entered and have you entered your information in a timely manner, things like that. Are you accurately reporting that data? Typically, y'all, there are normally 3 main people who the intervention screen are assigned to at the district. You have that MSIS primary contact, typically assigned to the special education director because of that child find connection. And then it's also assigned to the TST role, and that's normally your person who's responsible for inputting that data. Other people can be assigned, like that's not a given that those are the only 3 people. Other people can have access to it. Those are just your typical who we normally see who has access. Okay, y'all. So this is the main question we get. There are 2 types of intervention students that need to be on your intervention screen. The one that we're always most familiar with are your kids who pre-populate. We call those your intervention kids. Those are your kids that show up and they're on your 20-day list. They pre-populate, and we're going to talk about those. But there's a whole other group of students that sometimes get forgotten, and those are your students who the TST determines are in need of Tier 3 supports, and those students have to be manually entered into the MSIS Intervention Screen, and we're going to go through that process. So this is criteria for your kids that are going to pre-populate on that MSIS Intervention Screen. They're kids who have, in the K through 3, who have failed 1 year. It's any student in grades 4 through 6 who have failed 2 school years. Any student who has failed one of the previous 2 school years and has 20 or more days of suspension in your current school year. Any student who scored in the lowest part of the 3rd or 7th grade statewide accountability assessment, and then any student who has been promoted from 3rd grade to 4th grade on a good cause exemption. So y'all, I want to draw special, like this is where we get a lot of questions, because especially in the 2020 school year, because if you'll notice, y'all, a lot of things for 2020 aren't going to apply. So we've had several districts who have called or emailed us and said, you know, normally I have a 20-day report who has 4 pages. And this year I don't have any kids on it, or I have 1 or 2 kids on it. Well, if you look, y'all, you know, you're not going to have any students who promoted from 3rd to 4th on good calls because we didn't have any assessment. So there is no good calls. You're not going to have anybody in the lowest percentile in that 3rd or 7th grade group because there was no state accountability assessments. So just, you know, be mindful that we understand this 20-day populated list probably looks a lot different than it does in years past. And that's okay. You didn't do anything wrong. That's normal. So let's look at kind of some of that criteria on that list. If you look at numbers 1 and 2, those students are going to populate at the beginning of the year. Those students are going to populate on this district who has ownership of those kids. So like if kids move throughout the school year or move in the summer, it's whoever has control in MSIS, whoever owns that kid in MSIS, that's whose student's going to populate on their screen. You have, like we said, 20 days from the beginning of school, it's 20 school days, to refer those children to the TST to have that committee make a decision on what kind of interventions they need. It will pull from the month 9 data also. That was a question we've gotten on when it's pulling, because kids are going to summer school and doing credit recovery, things like that. That report pulls from month 9 data. And it will only pull for kids whose special education indicator is set to no for the N, with the exception of speech and language. So speech and language kids, their indicator is going to be yes, but they will still pull. But typically your special education population does not pull. For your criteria 3, with the students who have failed one of the previous 2 school years and has 20 days of suspension, MSIS will run a check over the weekend, and that's when, like, if your 20-day suspension is on a Friday, over the weekend, MSIS will run a report, and that student will populate then on Monday whenever you check that list. We do suggest you guys check in that list every Monday, because as the year goes on, those students who need those supports for that, especially for that behavior and suspension, they're going to populate on Mondays, and that gives you the best opportunity to, you know, get them to TST and get them to the proper interventions. For level, that will populate at the beginning of the school year whenever MDE receives those scores back. And you have 20 days from that time to get those kids to a TST meeting. And then I think number 5, 3rd to 4th grade populates at the beginning of the year. And you guys, you know, y'all know how to get those kids to the TST team.
Hey, Ginger.
Yes.
Before we move on number 2, I just want to make sure they know that it's any student in grades 4 through 12. I think you might have said 4 through 6.
So I
just want to make sure that they know that it is our students in grades 4 through 12. And then I just had some questions as you were talking, just to make sure that we're clarifying for everybody. And you kind of answered it. How will they know if they had someone populate, and like you suggested, Just make sure every Monday, or just designate a day that this is
Right.
a day I'm going to run in and check it. And then would you recommend that they had one person like in their school or one person in their district, that that's just kind of part of their, maybe their Monday task?
Absolutely. And I don't necessarily know that it's enough work for one person to do it every school, but one person within the district to have that responsibility. And then as soon as they see a student has populated, they get that information to the school. Maybe if your central office MSIS coordinator wants to run that report every Monday, and make sure that's done.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry, y'all. It is 4 through 12. Absolutely. It has been a day. Okay, y'all, this is how this is a screenshot of MSIS on how you get to those reports. So once you log in, you'll go to those reports and it's student data, intervention, and then roster compliance. Either the roster or the compliance. It's two different reports that'll let you see information. But that's how you run just a general report within MSIS. So let's talk about these students who pre-populated with those 5 criteria. So they've pre-populated. Now what? What do we do with them? So what you're going to do is you're going to conduct your 20-day meeting. You're going to document the decision of the TST. So are they going to go to tier 3 or do they need tier 2? Things like that. You're going to look at all of your data. You're going to look at lots of different resources, things like that. Then you're going to go to MSIS and you're going to update that student's status on the MSIS screen. And I'm going to show you how to do that. But you're going to put in there what the TST decided. And then lastly, y'all, we're going to provide that intervention. Nothing complicated here. We're going to decide what we're going to do. We're going to document what we do, and then we're going to go do it. So y'all, from that, this is a screenshot of how to get to that MSIS report for how you upload or how you enter kids into MSIS. So this is a screenshot again of the homepage of MSIS. All I've done, y'all, is log in here, and then I move my cursor up to modules. You go from modules to student, and then from student, you go over to that student intervention entry. And it'll bring up a page where you have to pick your school. So this is where you'll select your school. I appreciate my example here that you guys are on the top of the list, so I'm using you as an example. And so like for this one, we would highlight Aberdeen Elementary School, click it, and it should take you to your screen where you can select students. So if you'll look here on this screen, y'all, at the Select Students tab at the top is highlighted. That lets you know you're on the right screen. And if you'll see in that box right there, that rectangle box, it has intervention students or intervention ST ... Those are your students that are pre-populated. So we're just talking about pre-populated kids right here. And if you'll see, I had to blur some kids out, but where that purple bar is where your students will pre-populate. It'll give you their MSIS, their last name, first name, middle initial, social, birth date, grade level, and then the intervention right there, those check boxes, they'll pre-populate with what number 1 through 5 calls them to pre-populate. It'll tell you the student, is in first grade and failed kindergarten, so it'll check box number 1. Or if the student passed from 3rd to 4th grade on good calls, it'll check box number 5. And as we move on, I'll show you guys where the child study or the referred for child study, things like that, that yes, no screen, that information will pre-populate once you fill in the next section. But that's your home screen. Like that's where you're selecting the students that you want to enter their information in. Okay, so once you do that, you'll click on your student that you want to enter their information or update their information. And it'll take you to this screen. And if you just look, it's just one tab over. So we have selected our school, now we've selected our students, and now we're going to document their intervention. Let me catch up with my notes here, y'all. Okay, so if you'll see on this screen, and I've removed the student's information, but this is what MSIS will pre-populate. So it will MSIS will pre-populate the school year the district code, the school code, the MSIS ID, the student name, birth date, grade level, and race. MSIS will pre-populate and already tell you if the student has ever been referred previously to interventions or during the previous school year received interventions. It'll show you that previous referral date. It will show you what criteria they pre-populated in, and then it will show you the date for when the student pre-populated. So whenever that report was ran, it'll give you that date. So it's got to be 20 days from that date, that kind of thing. Okay, y'all. It will tell you, MSIS will pre-populate whether the student was promoted, so the yes or no, based off of month 9 data. And then the number of days the student has been suspended. So, this student in our example has been suspended 0 days in the current school year, but it'll tell you all of that. All of that information will be pre-populated. You don't have to enter any of that. Okay, so let's talk about these dates down here at the bottom. This type of referral, you don't have to worry about that for your pre-populated kids. That comes into play whenever we talk about entering our kids that are referred to that were referred by the TST team. So we have referred to TST, y'all. That is the date the student was referred to the TST. So when did the student decide, when did we decide that this student needed interventions? Then you have the TST decision date. That is the date the TST made the decision on the success of the intervention. Okay, so let's talk about those 2 dates. Referred to TST, y'all. In other words, that's the date your TST team met. That's the day that y'all got together and decided, okay, we need additional interventions. We're putting the student in tier 3. That's the date you had the meeting. The TST decision date, that's when you guys come back together and decide whether or not they're working. That's the date where we said, okay, we're going to continue with these tier 3 interventions, or we need to change them, or we need to bump them back down. That's that decision date. And y'all, that date, it's all based on school days, and that decision date has to be within 18 weeks. So just like that standard MTSS timeline, that date has got to be within 18 weeks. So, okay, this is everybody's favorite drop-down bar right here. It is going to be the yes, or no. And that yes can mean 2 different things. So on that drop-down bar, it's that yes is the student remains in general education. So yes, the interventions were successful, and we're going to keep them where they're at. He's going to remain in general education, doing good. Yes can also mean that yes, the interventions were successful, but he's not closing that gap in that timely manner that we think he does, that we think he needs to. So we're going to go ahead and still refer him to a child find study where he would go to MET. Or we can select no, that the interventions were not successful, and we're going to go ahead and proceed to MET. So that yes, no bar can be a little tricky because it can mean different things. Okay, y'all, we're rolling. Everybody good? Laura, do you have questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Looking at the dates that pre-populated, so
Okay.
like where it says referred to intervention, and it's got August 24th, and then intervention create date. So where are those dates coming from? Does it have to do with when the school, like is that something that's just internal with MSIS, or is that something that the school is entering? Do we know?
So those are going to pre-populate. The referred to intervention date is going to be pulled from the first day of the new year. So okay. like this example, this school started August the 24th. And that's so that it can start counting your 20 days. Like it keeps up with, this is the date that school started, so that's the day you have 20 days from. Now that intervention create date, that is an MSIS pulled number.
Okay.
Wait, hold. Oh, that was the day that MSIS ran to populate the screen.
Gotcha. Okay.
So y'all, MSIS is going to do that, but that's what they are.
Okay, so that's something that MSIS is doing. That's not anything that the district has to worry about. That's just internal. And so the area that they're focused on is down here at the bottom, those dates.
Those bottom three blue block boxes on this screen are what you guys need to worry about. That's the only thing that MSIS is actually going to let you touch. Everything else, whenever you click on it, it's going to go bring. But it'll let you enter those three bottom.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
You're welcome. I know, y'all, MSIS is fun, and we're going to talk about all the fun of MSIS at the end. Okay, so let's switch gears. We also have to have on the MSIS intervention screen kids that are students that the TST determine are in need of tier 3. So whenever we go to TST and we make a determination that, this student is in need of tier 3, we have to then go and manually enter that student into MSIS. And we're going to walk through that process too, y'all. It is not hard, I promise. But what we're going to do is you go to, and I'm going to walk you through this. We're going to go to the modules tab. We're going to go to the student intervention, and we're going to go to enter that MSIS number and look them up. So, and y'all, it's the exact same place. You don't have to stress. This gets a lot of people a little sweaty whenever they have to try to figure this out. So you're going to go through that same process, y'all, just like, and I can flip back to that screen. Hold on. You're going to go this same place. Your modules, student intervention entry. It's that exact same screen. But instead of, when it brings up this home screen, instead of, if you'll see that rectangle box, instead of where we clicked intervention student, these are referral students. These are students that the TST is referring for interventions. So you click over and click that button, and it will automatically pop up a box that says, please enter the student's MSIS ID into Query. And what you have to do, Query, y'all, essentially means MSIS is going to go find that kid and put them on your screen. So once you click that referral students, that box automatically pops up, and it's this right here, and you'll hit OK. It'll give you a bar to enter that kid's MSIS number. You hit go find them, and it'll put them on your screen. It'll put this student right under that purple box. It would pull that kid to the screen, and then you can click on them or highlight them, and it'll take you to that exact same screen we were just on. So if you notice, we selected our school. We have now selected our student. We've queried them. We found them. We put them on that screen. We click on them, and it pulls us to the intervention screen. Okay. All of that same information will be there for this student. There are probably going to be a couple of dates that aren't because they didn't pre-populate, like the date that they were referred to the intervention. That's going to be the date that your TST team met. But all of the other dates still stay the same. All of the other stuff should pre-populate also, y'all. The only difference is down at the bottom where this arrow is, that type of referral box will be open for you to use, and you should be able to click it and indicate that this is a referral student. It's going to be the only option in that drop-down menu. And then what that will do is open those last three boxes just like the other ones, and you fill in that information again. All of those, referred to dates, decision dates, all of those mean the exact same thing. And then, that intervention success, those drop downs mean the same thing for that one too. So really, y'all, the only difference is if a student doesn't pre-populate and the TST determines that the student needs tier 3 interventions, you have to go search that student's MSIS number. We call that querying, where MSIS goes and looks for it, and it pulls it to that intervention screen. It puts it on that list. You click on them on that list, and it pulls you to that intervention page. And you follow your exact same process that you do for your kids that pre-populate. The only difference is on this page, you're going to have to tell it the type of referral. They're an intervention referral student. Okay. Just some other general guidance about what MSIS, things about the MSIS screen. The MSIS intervention screen information will follow a student from district to district and school to school. So your days of suspension, that's the next one. That days of suspension will follow a student. The fact that a student is in tier 3 in one county and then at Christmas moves to another county, when that information, that student's information is transferred, their MSIS their intervention screen information will also transfer with them. So that's why we stress about getting your information in there, making sure it's correct, because as kids move, we want to make sure that their information that's moving is correct. Let's see. So the next slide, y'all, is questions. Lori, do you have any that have come to mind real quick?
Yes, so I have just a couple of thoughts. So this came to kind of fruition through our MTSS virtual hours. We were getting questions about MSIS, and one of the some of the feedback was, hey, could y'all do a training on MSIS? And we were like, yes, this is a great opportunity to get in there and let's do a recording and get the most accurate information on MSIS out for you guys for interventions. And so through those conversations, we realized that yes, everybody's aware of the 20-day kids and that yes, you put that information into MSIS, but you also put those referral students that Ginger was talking about. So you're going to have the intervention students like she talked about with that button. But then as you're having your TST meetings throughout the school year, you're going to have new students that you're entering into MSIS. And so just from our conversations that we've had through our virtual hours, we realized, that a lot of districts are not doing that, for whatever reason. And we understand, there's turnover at schools, and this just may not be something that you were aware of. So now moving forward, we just want to make sure that you are aware of this and that you are entering this data. And just like with the other suggestions that we made, this may be something that, after you have a TST meeting, you have a designated person that's going into MSIS and entering in this information. In my former school district, it was almost like a spreadsheet, and it was just where we filled out that information on those students. So after we had a TST meeting, if we were referring someone to Tier 3, I would just fill out student name, MSIS number, the date of our meeting, the date interventions are going to begin. And so then that way, whoever I handed that over to, they entered the information in and ensure that it was getting into the system. So I wanted to put that suggestion out there because that may help some of you. Let's see. Okay. Yes.
Y'all, I'll say this, that MSIS has a mind of its own. It is in the process of having a complete overhaul through our office of our technology office. And so we understand that sometimes, y'all, it can throw errors or it can cause questions, things like that. If you guys get an error or you have a question as you're doing it, please reach out to us. We will do our best to try to figure it out. I now have access to get on and see what you guys are seeing, so I can kind of walk you through the process. But at the end of the day, y'all, I would make sure that I'm keeping my documentation. Keep your documentation of what you're trying to do in MSIS. If it is throwing an error, just because that covers y'all, if there's ever a question down the road or an audit situation, y'all know that, everybody's got to document. And so that's my suggestion, is that, we love technology. It's an amazing product, but sometimes that good documentation that you just keep in a file is a very good backup plan too.
Yes, that's a very good point, Ginger. So I will say that we're going to share this. We're going to post it on the website along with the slide deck. So you will have access to the slides as well as the recording. So Ginger, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I'm good. I think that was a great session.
I think that was great. So thank you, everyone, and do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions at all. Thank you.